going on, everyone? Welcome to the video. If you're new here, thank you so much for checking out the channel. If you're a returning viewer or subscriber, good to see you again. This week I wanted to go over the first ultra race that I'm going to be doing this summer, what I've been doing so far, and the training that I'm going to be doing to get there over the next 16 weeks. The race that I decided to do is the Chase the Moon 12-hour race here in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. I chose to do this race for a couple reasons. The first one primarily being that it's close to home and it's in an area that I'm familiar with. I've never run the trails particularly, but just taking out the logistics for myself and my crew of having to travel somewhere different really helps a lot and makes this a much easier thing to do as opposed to going to a out-of-state race where there's just a lot more to think about. It's easy to just take a car, drive over to the race and start from there. The second reason I decided to do this race is the time format rather than a distance format. I do want to do a 50K and that's what I'm training for, but the time format allows me to go further than that if I'm feeling good and if it's something that I decide I want to ultimately do. I thought that would be helpful for my first ultra because I really have no idea what to expect as far as how I'm gonna feel once I hit that 50K mark. Hopefully I'm feeling great and I can continue to push myself further. Inherently, if I was doing a distance race like a 50K or a 50 miler, I'd be limited as far as how far I could go, and then if I got to the end and I felt good, it doesn't really matter, the race is over at that point. The third reason I decided on this race is really the conditions. It is run overnight, which I thought would just be a fun race experience. It's run from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and the course that it is on is fairly gradual. It's 870 feet of elevation gain with one checkpoint or aid station at 4.8 miles at the backside of the loop. You just run the same 10-mile loop every time. You go as long as you can for 12 hours. The trail itself, according to the website, is minimally technical, which I feel like for my first trail race is helpful. Don't need to go out and try to prove my fitness to myself while also dealing with all the technical aspects that some of the more mountainous trail races have to offer. I'm also excited for the nighttime aspect. It'll be interesting to see how that feels because that obviously plays into a lot of races as well. And this particular race is actually set to coincide very closely with the summer equinox, so the moon's supposed to be full and bright. The back side of the course you get the mountains, and on the front side of the course you get downtown Denver. The conditions, the timing of the race, it all lined up really perfectly, which just made it an optimal choice for what I'm looking to do. Going into this race, I have three main goals. The first one being to complete the 50K distance. That's the distance I'm going to be training for over the next 16 weeks. That's the most important goal going into this. Everything after that is going to be a bonus. Getting that piece done is the most important. The second kind of sub goal of that portion is that I would like to do it in under 6 hours if I can. I've never obviously run 30 miles, let alone on a trail, but based on some of my longer trail training recently, I do feel like it's something that I could potentially do just based on the terrain and the markers that I have even before the training that I'm going to be doing. Second goal, after I hit that 50K mark, if I'm still feeling good, I want to try to be on the podium for my age group. My current age group is 20 to 29 years old. Looking at the historical data of this race in particular, it does seem like if you can go at least 50K anywhere from 30 miles into 45 miles, I'd have a pretty good chance of being on the podium in my age group. That is because this isn't a huge field and it also tends to skew a little bit older. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year, you never know, but looking at the historical data, that's what I see, which means that I think that that goal is attainable if I can get over that 50K mark and feel fairly strong and continue to push. The third goal and the highest, most lofty goal is going to be podium overall. Looking at the finishing times and distances for the last year, looks like the top three finishers were over 60 and then over 50 respectively. Second and third technically ran the same distance, but because there's a cutoff on the back aid station as well as the start finish, if you run the same distance as somebody else, it is going to be based on who does that distance in the least amount of time. I think if I'm feeling really strong, if I can do the 50K in 6 hours and leave myself 6 hours to do 20 miles, maybe even another 30, I could potentially be in the running for that podium group just based on the actual historical data of this race. Sometimes it's been less mileage, mileage, sometimes it's been more, but if I really give myself enough time, I think that I would have a good opportunity of just continuing to push and to move through the space. You never really know. It depends on who shows up the day of the race, but I feel like if everything goes to plan, just continue to push and try to see what I can accomplish there. Before I get into what I'm going to be doing over the next 16 weeks training-wise to help me accomplish these goals, I did want to talk about what I've been doing so far to help me gear up for this training block. Over the last 6 weeks, I've been going through Sally McRae's Run and Strength Challenge. I feel like this has been a very helpful 6 weeks, not only to start building up the mileage from where I was at. I went from doing 20 to 30 miles a week during the half marathon training program I was on to doing 35 to 40 plus, which has been quite a bump, but because of the way that it's structured, a lot of that mileage is at an aerobic pace. There's also been the added element of very deliberate strength training. The training that I've been doing up to this point has been very run heavy. Obviously, it's just been a running training program. There's a little paragraph that says do strength training if you find it beneficial. Outside of that, there's not really any guidance. In the Sally McRae program, it's very clear what you're going to be doing for each training session, if it involves lifting or not. If it does involve lifting, guidance on whether to do it before or after. If you're doing it before, why you're doing it before, and if you're doing it after, why you're doing it after. I think that's been really helpful to set expectations for what I'm going to be seeing during her 50K training program. Help me understand the way that she programs, the way that she explains the runs and the lifts, and understand a lot of the movements that I'm going to be doing as I go through that 16-week progression. I feel a secondary benefit to doing this training leading into the 16 weeks is just getting my body adjusted to weight training as a whole. The first 3 weeks were very tough. Even doing the intervals, trying to keep it light, even body weight when I could feel the effect that it had on my running and just my system as a whole. Recovery was a lot different. The runs themselves were a lot different because I did have some fatigue in the muscles, whether it be upper body and the shoulders or legs. Getting used to that type of training has been super helpful, and I think it would have been hurtful to just go straight into this 16 weeks without doing that beforehand. I'm really grateful that I was able to get used to that stimulus and get my body prepared for it before it was all part of my training, and then I was feeling stressed out that I'm going through a couple weeks that didn't feel as beneficial or optimized as possible. Now my body's set and ready to go, and I can just take full advantage of the training block I'm going into. Final note on that, if you want to improve your running, you need to be lifting weights. There's no way around it. If you are not lifting, that's fine. Maybe you're progressing the way that you want to, but for me personally, I've seen faster progression in my speed, my endurance, everything that involves running because of the work I'm doing with weights. I am stronger in my legs, I am more solid in my core. That's leading to being able to run further at faster paces, be more stable and more secure when I'm running on trails. That's a really important piece of it as well. You want to make sure that you are building a strong core and a lot of stability into your system, into your supportive ligaments and tissues, especially when you're going to be running on a trail. When you're on a road, you can get away with a lot because you're just going over a flat surface over and over again. Unless you step on something uneven unexpectedly, you're probably not going to have to be too worried about your stability outside of the typical strength that you build just from the running itself. Let's get into the meat of it. The next 16 weeks is going to be very challenging and very different from any other long training block I have done. I know that the volume is going to be way up from what I have ever done in the past, even in marathon training. Looking at it from a high level, I think I'm going to be 40 plus for a majority of the training. There are long runs that are 3.5 hours or more, including strength training in those sessions. I'm looking forward to it. I can't lie that it's a little bit intimidating looking at it from where I am now. 3.5 hours on the trail sounds like a beast, but I'm really excited to get to a point where 3.5 hours on a trail is just another training session. And I think that's something that's important to remember and even think about when you're going into any training, especially a long block like this one being 16 weeks long. You have to set yourself some goals and some mental bookmarks where you're going to get to and give yourself props, honestly. The race is one thing, but it's at the end end of a very long training block. You have to give yourself a little bit of extra stimulus that's going to help build that motivation from here to the race. Whether that's in between, you know you have a long run that's going to step you up to somewhere you've never been before, whether it's running at a certain pace, it's getting your nutrition dialed in, whatever it is that helps you build those little bricks that you can lay up to the race that helps you stay motivated is super beneficial when you're talking about long-term training blocks. I think it's important to remember going into any long training block that while you can be flexible to a certain degree, you can switch workout A for workout B without much of an issue, move the day that it's on depending on the timing that you have or the energy that you have for a particular day. There are some training programs, and I think this is one of them, where you want to be very particular about following it and being very regimented about following the workouts and having them land on the days that they are prescribed to land on. The reason for this is because there is a strength element in this workout plan specifically. I do find that even in the 6 weeks leading up to this, it is super helpful to make sure that I'm doing the workouts on the day that they're prescribed, or you have a lot of lifting days backing up to each other, or you have a lot of fast days back to back, or you have long runs back to back that aren't supposed to be. And that can be really tough on your body. You can do them, but you're probably not going to be doing them and getting the benefit from them that you should if you're switching them out. Being aware of that, kind of taking a look at the program that you're going into and having an understanding of that is really helpful for how you strategize and have an outlook on how you're going to accomplish your training block. There aren't any prescribed tuner races in this training block as there are in some other programs. I am going to try to find some that meet different purposes. I might try to find some shorter trail races to just get me more time on trail, also give me the feeling of races within the trail world. I'm going to be doing the GoPro Mountain Games 5K and 10K, which is all trail, a lot of vert, really fun competition. I actually did it last year and I'm excited to go back again because I know I'm going to be much stronger and definitely PR very big on each of those races. Outside of that, I'm probably going to be looking for also some road races that will get me a little bit more speed training. Honestly, just have some fun. It's nice to incorporate that into your day. Even if I go and do a half marathon, I do that in 2 hours as a training run, then I can go and do another hour and a half of running if that's what the day calls for. In the ultra training world, it's more about getting the volume and the time on feet than it is about doing any particular thing. Sally McRae's biggest thing that she talks about and has been very vocal about recently is fitness is fitness. And I think that that's great because it really is true. I think there's a huge focus on doing running and running and running. And yeah, I think that's true for the elites that are out there. They need to be running. That is what they do. And they need to be dialing in that form to a minuscule degree to get that extra couple seconds, extra couple minutes, tenths of a second even sometimes, depending on the race. But for those of us that are sub-elite, are age groupers, or even just people out there doing this for fitness and getting into racing, I think it's less important that we are so focused on running and more focused on building that engine. And it's going to translate into the running. It can be really helpful to have that mindset because you could be going to the gym to do a run and all the treadmills are taken. I've had this happen recently. I decided instead of doing a full hour of running, I'll do 20 minutes of rowing to let a treadmill open up and then I'll go over to the treadmill. That was actually interesting because my legs got fairly fatigued going into the run itself. It can actually add some variety and some different challenge to the workout that you're doing. Don't be afraid to mix it up. When it comes to cardio, I think for those of us that are in this and we're not high tier elite athletes, it's more about building the engine than it is about dialing in the form. Obviously you want to have good form because you want to maintain your body and not run into injury, but assuming that you don't have a terrible form, building the engine is going to become one of the most important things for any of your races that you're going to be training for. I'm really excited to take you all on this journey with me. I know that there are many out there that are going to be doing their own ultras or their own races. I'd love to hear about those in the comments, and if you do have any questions, let me know. I might not have all of the answers, but I would love to point you towards resources of things that I've read or things that I can find, or maybe I do have the answer from my own experience. Love to share that with you. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm I'm going to be dropping one video every Friday for the next 16 weeks, probably 17 weeks, because we're gonna have an extra video before we have the first training week. But you are going to be getting a lot of content with the main videos, some secondary videos, maybe even a secondary channel for some extra content, as well as shorts that I'm going to be doing. This channel is going to be growing and moving quickly, and I'm excited to bring you all the content leading into this race and finally having a really big race video for you at the very end. If you have followed or watched any of my videos up until this point, I really appreciate it. It's been really motivational to see that there are others out there just like me interested in what I am doing, and hopefully it's benefiting you in your training just as much. Really appreciate all of you that have subscribed, and I'm looking forward to bringing you better and better content as we go down this road together. I'm excited to go after this goal and bring you all on that journey with me. I really just appreciate all the support. And with that, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel and it helps people just like you find this content. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe and consider turning on the notification bell so that you can see those videos every Friday and know when they are posted. Otherwise, we will see you in the next video. Let's go train.